welcome once again to the Music Crypt. We're already on episode 8, if you can believe that, Dan. And today's going to be really fun. We're doing something a little different for our music portion of the show. And what we're going to be talking about is April 5th. Now, people listening to this, what do you mean April 5th? Well, earlier in April, I was online, on Facebook to be specific, and I seen a lot of people posting stuff about these different musicians who all through the years all died on April 5th. Until I was reading this, I never kind of really paid attention to this. I thought, hey, this is kind of interesting. And they didn't all die in the same year. They died on different years. It's just kind of a neat little thing. And in doing research for this, as we talk about, you're going to see, I learned some things about some of these guys' death that I'd never even heard of before I even got onto Wikipedia. So we're going to get right into it. First guy on our list is Kurt Cobain. Now, he was born February 20th, 1967, died April 5th, 1994. Obviously, we're talking about the lead singer, guitarist from Nirvana. Died at the young age of 27. Died by suicide by gunshot. Now, were you much of a Nirvana fan back then, Dan?
I was kind of how do I say it? I was a fan, but I was competing with them at the same time because I was in a band in Seattle in '93 trying to find a gig.
Okay.
And if you weren't playing grunge, you couldn't get a gig, so a metal band didn't really have a chance.
So that was my next question.
But that's what he was cool. He was an excellent musician. Now,
in regards to you being a musician yourself and being in a band at that time, did you kind of, you and your bandmates kind of say, okay, well, this is what's hip now, so that's the direction we got to go in, or was your problem more like, well, no, we're a metal band and we're going to stay doing the metal thing?
No, because everybody had already gotten rid of their leather.
Yeah.
Throwing on worn-out jeans and flannel shirts. So we were like, no, we're not going to do that.
Okay,
so, we'd pull up and try to do a gig, and they're like, oh, can you cover a Nirvana song? It's like, no.
Yeah,
do that. They're playing 2 blocks away.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because I had this kind of same approach. I was a musician. I was obviously a music fan. And I felt at the time, because, Nirvana, like, and all those bands from Seattle, that's when the big grunge moment happened. And I felt like their success was killing a lot of the bands I grew up on. Because all of a sudden, like, MTV and the radio stations turned their backs on even bands like Bon Jovi and Motley Crue. All of a sudden, if you were a fan of those bands, it was like...
They actually got MTV on MTV.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny. I actually, a while ago last year, I interviewed Mark Scott. He's a drummer from Trickster, and he was telling me, he goes, I'll tell you a funny story that, he goes, they had that Dial MTV show, and the Trickster video, I think, was for Surrender or something. He said, we had a #1 song with our video, and by the very next day, so he's like, we had our first #1 on Dial MTV, first #1 video and song, and he says by the next day they had canceled that show. So we and that was and we were the last #1 video on Dial MTV. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. He was telling me at that time MTV and radio and everything all of a sudden started turning their backs on these bands. Like, we're just not going to play you guys anymore. This is the movement. We're going to play Nirvana. We're going to play these bands. And they had a lot of cookie cutter bands, Dan, if you remember, where, like you're saying, these are the bands that were exploding at the time. So all of a sudden, the record companies, they started going out and signing every single band that sounded anything remotely like Nirvana.
Yeah, anything close to what grunge was going on, yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because every 10 years there's a cycle in music where the guard kind of changes. Like at that time, all these so-called hair metal bands, hard rock bands, they were no longer popular, and then they come back around. Like 10 years later, they're all of a sudden popular again. But all these grunge bands, these copycatter bands that got signed just for sounding, having that sound, it's like the true cream rose to the top, because the bands that were left were Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains. All the copycat bands, though, kind of they got let go too eventually.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you say, it's just a phase. It's like now pretty much all of those guys are gone.
And even like you look at a band like Motley Crue that they were supposed to go on that big stadium tour last year, and because of COVID it got canceled. And now I hear they're going to try to go out on the road this year. They're calling it like the 40th anniversary tour. And my point with that is, okay, they've had their ups and downs. They've been pretty popular for the most part, but then you look at, okay, they're a band that's been around for 40 years, so they have a fan base that's 40 years old. So that also says something about that, right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now let me ask you, in regards to Kurt Cobain, I mean, I remember at the time, I mean, his death was so shocking, not just because he was so young, only 27 years old, but the way he died, I mean, I remember hearing the news report on MTV News in my living room that day, and I was not a huge Nirvana fan. I'll say I've had more of appreciation since Nirvana's breakup and his death, but I never was a huge fan, but I think he's a genius as far as singing, songwriting, and, he could play the guitar. He was a triple threat, so, but when you hear the way the guy died and so tragically young, it's like, wow, what could his problems have been? But I think that's really, of that generation, that's the first time anybody had really died that way, and that's why so many people were shocked, when that report came on the news.
Right. Yeah, I know, like, the crowd that I was hanging out with, I was actually down when, let's see, you know how it kind of went in stages, right?
Yeah.
How, I think he tried to overdose.
Yeah.
I think while he was, like, in California.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
And then that didn't work out, so then he was checked into a hospital.
Yeah.
And then he came back to Washington, and he was supposedly at his house. And this whole time, the guys that I knew were like, yeah, watch, this is not going to end well.
Yeah.
But they weren't saying that it was because of a lot of people say that he couldn't take the fame.
Yeah.
Right? But it wasn't that. It was because of that.
Yeah, it was like the pressure.
He was hanging around with.
Oh, yeah. Courtney.
Everybody I knew said, he was as stable as the next grunge rocker.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Who knows the truth?
She drove him over the edge.
Yeah, on that note, even since his passing, I heard when, before we decide, okay, well, we're going to break up Nirvana, it's still like a business, it's still a company, and I heard how she thought because, she was married to Kurt, she should get a larger share of the band than the other two guys, and I'm like, wait a minute, okay, you may be married to, you were married to the lead singer, but those guys were actually in the band, you were never in the band. Maybe you should get a third of what he would have got, and then I heard they had to take her to court because she was trying to sue him over everything. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah, it's freaking stupid, it's, I don't think, I think she knew what she was doing when she picked up the thing. Well, I'm going to drive this guy crazy and take all his money.
Yeah, who knows then?
Because she had no talent of her own.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, that's...
I freaking couldn't stand her. We called her, I don't know if you want to edit this out.
No, that's cool. I'm cool.
But we all called her Courtney Hole.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, she even tried to...
That band name was Hole, right?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember it. Yeah. She was even in the Larry Flint movie. I mean, she tried to portray herself as an actress for, one movie at least.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, I don't know.
Yeah.
One of the people that definitely hooked up with each other,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know on that, but it's sad the way he went out, but he's really, he's become like a lot of people in death, he's become like even bigger. I mean, the albums continue to sell. And there's an interesting thing about Nirvana I heard recently. There was a story that they have some computer software. I don't know if you heard about this, Dan, where they took a Nirvana song and kind of created like a new Nirvana song out of what if Kurt Cobain was still like singing, what a Nirvana would sound like now. I don't know quite how they did it, but it was kind of an interesting story.
Wow.
Yeah. And yeah. And okay, so the next guy on our list is interesting deaths here that are kind of all died on April 5th would be Layne Staley, who died April 5th, 2002, and he was only he was a little older than Kurt Cobain. He was 34 years old, so he lived a little longer. But not so much suicide, but in a way because it was a drug overdose. I guess it was a combination of heroin and cocaine that killed him. And here's what I didn't know until I was reading up on this today, which I don't know why it's never been reported. Maybe the family wanted to kind of keep it hush-hush, who knows. But apparently the way because they found him dead, they went kind of looking for him, the family, because I guess his mother hadn't heard from him in 2 weeks, and somebody noticed that, his assistant or somebody noticed that no funds had been, taken out of his account for like 2 or 3 weeks, and they're like, okay, we need to do a welfare check and have somebody go find him. And so like 2 weeks later, by the time they find him dead, he's been lying there dead in his apartment or whatever for so long that the body starts to kind of it's almost not recognizable, and the way they were able to kind of ID his body was through his teeth, his dental records. So I mean, just think about that for a minute. That you're lying there for 2 weeks before anybody notices. Hey, I haven't heard from him.
Yeah.
And,
that was a weird deal.
Yeah, and
another, like you say, another tragedy too. Because I think that if he'd stayed alive, I think the band would have
come even bigger.
Would have stayed. Well, not that they didn't stay relevant, but they would have stayed relevant.
Yeah.
Even though grunge died off, they would have stayed. They would have stayed rocking. You know what I mean? Because they were kind of rock and grunge at the same time.
Yeah.
But towards the end, they were getting heavy. I was really digging them.
I agree with you to the point that of all those grunge bands, I will say I liked even more than Nirvana. I liked Alice in Chains a lot better because to me they had their own thing going, but they had like more of a Sabbathy thing going to them, and I think with the death of Layne Staley, the reason they were able to continue on with the new singer is because Jerry Cantrell, who's the main songwriter in that band, he can sing the stuff as well, and he's a great vocalist, he's a great singer and songwriter. He's kind of the voice, and it's interesting. The guy they got to replace Layne Staley, William Dafoe. He's this black singer. He's a great singer in his own right. He didn't come in there trying to sound like Layne Staley, and I think that's part of a reason the fans were so accepting of it. But also, they put out a couple new albums with this guy, but without even trying to, he sounds like Layne Staley. Like if you close your eyes, you'd almost think it was the same singer that sung "Man in a Box." Yeah, so I always did like them a little better, and so I just want to kind of make note of these guys because some are bigger than others, and then I guess the third one on this list who died April 5th, 1998, at the age of 50. This would be legendary drummer Cozy Powell. He's played with everybody like from Black Sabbath, Rainbow. Probably most people know him from Whitesnake. Just super powerhouse drummer. And now this was interesting. This is another thing. I knew he died in a car accident. Apparently he was going with a married woman at the time, and she was having problems with her ex-husband, and she called Cozy to come and help her do something, and he was killed along the way. And actually when he was on the phone with her, I guess he's on a cell phone or something, talking to her, she heard the car crash take place. He's like, oh shit, as the crash takes place. And apparently his alcohol level was above whatever the legal limit was. I'm just kind of learning this stuff, and I thought, oh wow, that was never really reported at the time. Kind of interesting. Now, of all these guys, 50 years old, that's kind of still young too. But of all the guys here on our list today, he's probably the one that lived the longest, which is kind of sad. But I'd say like Cozy Powell's probably got the most of these guys, probably the most legendary as far as like he's probably played on at least 20 albums throughout his career, just but I couldn't even name them all, But he played on some of the Black Sabbath stuff from the 80s and 90s, and I think probably next to Bill Ward, he's probably the best drummer they had in Black Sabbath.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the I don't know if you've heard of this guy, Mark St. John. He was briefly a member of Kiss. He played on their 1984 Animalize album, and he was born February 7th, 1956. Died on April 5th, 2007, at the age of 51. So he lived to be 1 year older than, I guess, Cozy Powell. But anyways, Mark St. John, I remember it being reported that he had died of a brain hemorrhage, supposedly brought on by his drug addiction. I guess he had a very heavy drug addiction to cocaine. And after he did the one album with Kiss, he could no longer play with Kiss because he got some arthritic condition called Rider syndrome. It prevented him from playing guitar until took him years to heal. And I guess because he never was really very successful after leaving Kiss, that's part of the reason he got hooked on drugs. And what I did not know until today was I never heard that before April 5th, 2007, when he died from a cerebral hemorrhage, he had been arrested on drug charges. He was in prison, and he stole some food from one of the inmates or something, and he snitched on one of the inmates, and he got severely beaten like maybe a year before, and they think in fact, that when he was taken to the hospital and his girlfriend came to see him, he was so unrecognizable that that they think that it was that beating, like maybe a year later, that because he was hit so badly and beaten, that's what built up the cerebral hemorrhage. So I mean, I never heard of this until today. I'm like, wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
He was in Kiss?
Yeah, he played on the Animal.
So was that during their makeup?
No, the non-makeup year. So it was the album after. It was on the album after Lick It Up, which was Animalize, and that had Heaven's on Fire on it. And if you watch the Heaven's on Fire video, he's the video on that. He's the guy that Bruce Kulick would replace in Kiss.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's kind of part one of our show today. And then part two, we're not going to be, I don't think it's going to be too long, but part two, you and I wanted to talk about, I want to talk about Aquaman for a couple reasons. I mean, he's probably one of the, like, you think of Aquaman, you think probably the Justice League, which he's a founding member of, but Aquaman, I remember just from being a kid, my kind of perception or image of Aquaman is kind of the animated version. And it's kind of, so Aquaman, just to kind of give people a time frame here, he dates back to November 1941 when he made his first appearance in More Fun Comics number 73. I've never heard of that, but 1941, just to give people kind of a perspective, is like World War I era. So this is when he's making his first appearance, and he's described as kind of a hybrid Atlantean demigod, and he's kind of like the king of the sea. So basically his power is he's got the power to communicate with the sea life. So I guess the first question for you, Dan, is I kind of got the idea you're not a huge Aquaman fan. So why don't you tell us, like, the first time you ever seen Aquaman, what your initial thought was?
I think the first time I saw it was probably just it may have been in a comic book.
Yeah.
And if I saw it, I probably just saw it sitting on the stand and didn't even pick it up.
Yeah.
And then later, maybe cartoons like the Justice League or something like that.
Super Friends. That's what I remember.
Yeah, there you go.
Now let me ask you. I don't really know what the difference between, because to me it's kind of the same thing in that it's like a team of super. What do you like better, Justice League or Super Friends? To me, it's kind of the same. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the Justice League is cool.
Yeah.
The Super Friends would have been okay if they didn't have the stupid twins on there.
There you go. Yeah, see. Well,
yeah, but that was the time where they had to have. You couldn't have like an all-serious show. You had to have some kind of comic relief.
Yeah.
Something to make it not so serious.
Yeah, and I think part of that is because it was Saturday morning, cartoon show, and so like you said, you had to make it kind of fun. I couldn't make it too serious, and it's kind of. I remember watching the Super Friends and thinking, okay, only time I see these Wonder Twins is like on the Super Friends show. Why don't they have their own comic book? Why don't they have their own series? They were kind of like. I guess you could say filler material, or they were kind of the comedy aspect of that. Kind of like they had a great animated version of Batman and Robin. When the original '66 show went off with Adam West, and they had Adam West and Burt Ward do these, like they were their voices, but like as an animated cartoon, and they had this little like a monkey character, and they called him Batmite, and same type of thing. Supposed to be a little goofy character, kind of funny when you see it for the first time, but it kind of took away from the show. And so I do agree with you. Justice League is a lot cooler. Now it says Aquaman was, of course, a founding member of Justice League. And here's what's interesting. Now you were making comments, to me when we were prepping for this, through email. Like I said, I never really thought Aquaman was a real super cool character. And the thing is that a lot of people in the '80s, because of what we're talking about from the Super Friends, and his animated kind of cartoon version, a lot of people seen Aquaman, like of all the superheroes, like the most wholesome, most kind of weak character. And people, comedians in the '80s would actually get up on part of their stand-up routine and make jokes about Aquaman because of the way he looked. Which I will tell you, when they finally came out with the movie on Aquaman, I could have seen the movie, and I'll say he looked really, let's just say Aquaman with much more of an edge. He looked cool. I'm like, wow, that's an Aquaman like I've never seen, but I ain't complaining.
Did you realize that the Aquaman suit,
Yeah,
the one that we know, the
yeah,
green and orange and the yellow belt, was a prisoner outfit?
I didn't even see. No.
Yeah, I guess he was. I didn't really get into it because I mean that's about as far as I got. But somehow he got thrown into some kind of underwater prison.
Yeah, and still.
And they all dressed like that.
Yeah, wow.
And so he escaped, and instead of putting on whatever outfit he wanted to put on, he kept his prison outfit to help remember everybody.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because that when I seen the Aquaman movie, I liked it, but it's kind of like, wow, this is really different from the Aquaman I grew up on. And I will say I liked it now. I don't know. I think with COVID and everything, who knows? But you know, they were talking about coming out with a part 2. Now I'm hearing they don't know if they're going to do it. And I'm wondering, okay, because the first movie they did, it was pretty popular. People went to see it, and so I'm like, but then again, I'm thinking maybe even though the movie was popular, a lot of people kind of had the reaction I did, which is, that's a cool looking Aquaman. But I've never seen an Aquaman like that. That looks so drastically different. I mean, could you imagine kind of like, I guess what I'm saying here is like the Superman most of us grew up on. Superman, you know, has a blue and red suit, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, we're gonna make a modern Superman, and we're gonna make him look cool, and we're gonna put sunglasses on him and slick his hair back, and he's gonna have a leather coat with a Superman logo. It's like, that's not my Superman. No, that looks so drastically different. And there's some of these characters I've noticed when they try to put them on the big screen.
Yeah, they have to cool him up.
Yeah. And they really cooled him up.
They're just not cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, you know how when we were talking about this, and I was like, well, I wondered what the difference is between Aquaman and the and Namor, right?
Yeah.
The submariner, right?
Yeah.
So it finds out they're from the same city.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Right? But for some reason, and I didn't really get into his past or anything like that, because I saw that he had these little wings on his ankles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which allows him to fly.
Oh, wow. See, I didn't even know.
And I'm just like, all right, and I've had enough of him already.
Yeah. I mean, you know, when we usually do this, Dan, I get online and research it, and I want to know some of the historical background that I might not be too aware of. But like I say, this is the first time that we're talking about a character, but I don't know a whole lot. I mean, I can tell you, like you're saying, okay, yeah, Aquaman, he's a guy in the orange and yellow and green suit, had yellow hair. See, that's the other thing is, okay, they didn't even get a blonde guy to play Aquaman. They said, and it's like, no, we're going to totally redo his image. We're just going to cool it up. We don't care. The guy has a beard. It doesn't matter. But I ask you, I wonder if it does matter to the people going to see the movie, you know?
I think that's well, you know, and then plus they had to, how do you say this? They had to compete to try to get people who were hooked on the Marvel movies to come watch it. You know, so they had to have some kind of optical something or other to pull them in, saying, well, that looks badass.
Yeah, but one thing
instead of some guy in a red and green suit wearing, riding a giant seahorse.
Yeah, but one thing I did like about the movie that they did was, I think they did a great job of recreating Atlantis. I mean, you know, you've always heard about the underwater like city, and that to me, like, they really brought it to life. That's just as I kind of always imagined it. So great job there, I say, as far as, you know, the movie they did. And so Aquaman, I guess he's kind of currently going through kind of a image change, and we can, I guess, all use kind of a image change. But I used to, I remember they had this. In fact, I have a lot of these stuff on a DVD collection, and I seen on Amazon they had an Aquaman like cartoon collection from the 70s, and a lot of stuff I just like to kind of have in my collection. You know, so say I have it, and I watched it, and you can kind of, if you watch it, you can tell, yeah, this is from the 70s. It looks kind of dated, but the other thing is like, okay, that's my Aquaman that I grew up on, and there's some stuff that I watch it like the old Batman series. Like I could see those episodes like over and over, and I could kind of cite the lines as I'm watching them. But Aquaman, I'm not like too good at that. I have to kind of watch it a few more times. And see that what I did like about Aquaman, I thought was a cool concept is being able to communicate with the sea animals, you know, and you don't actually hear him talking, but you have to kind of, okay, well that's kind of what he's saying. Okay, that must be what they're talking about. You got.
That's what it seems like in the movies, right? Well,
yeah.
At least with his movie and the one what was that, the Justice League movie?
Yeah.
He had more. He was like they emphasized his power over water a lot more.
Yeah.
Than they did in his comic years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was more like into talking to the fishes than making a tidal wave to wipe out the bad guy or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of like they seem to have the same problem with the Incredible Hulk. Like they've made a couple of good movies, but they haven't made like the Ultimate Hulk movie. I think the guy they got doing it now, he's pretty good. He's been doing it for a while, so they should stick with him. But I think they need to do a new Hulk movie. And I think what they should kind of look at is, I think kind of a standard for me is the old Bill Bixby series. I mean, I used to love tuning into that every week. I mean, they did the writers on that, I mean, just super storytellers, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But what was great about it being a TV show is the character was so real. You believed he was picking up those cars and, you know, just tearing the town apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did an awesome job with that. That was a really cool series back in the day.
Yeah. So, that's about all I have to say for today, Dan, unless there's anything you want to discuss.
No, I don't. I mean, Aquaman, I guess, you know, and Aquaman was just Aquaman.
Yeah,
He
that impressive.
He was supposed to, like you said, the founding member of the Justice League, and but I don't know. I just don't see the damage that a herd of goldfish could do.
Yeah. I guess.
I guess it wouldn't be a herd, would it? It'd be more like a school.
Yeah, that's what it was. I even remember, like, okay, you know, and some of those Super Friends and Justice League cartoons, like, okay, Aquaman, you go and talk to your friends in the sea and see what they can do. And that was kind of a cool aspect. But the other thing with Justice League and Super Friends is Aquaman, and I don't know if this was an intentional thing, but he always did seem to kind of be the odd man out. I remember watching episodes, and they'd be like, Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman would go and do some, okay, Aquaman, we need you to stay here at the Hall of Justice, and you people look at it. And I'm like, okay. they seem to...
And then one of the classic examples is of course, the Robot Chicken.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, like that clip you sent me where they were in the invisible plane.
Yeah. Why was it that Aquaman was the one that got his ass kicked, you know, and he of all of them, he looked like the most wimpy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
Okay, Dan. Well, thanks for doing this. I'm going to try to post this within the next day or two. Hopefully by Monday or Tuesday it'll be up, and I'll let you know. And thanks again for posting all the episodes on your site. More people will find out about what we're doing. So take care. And the next time we do this, we're like 2 more shows away from episode 10. That's quite an accomplishment, and I do think we get better and better with each episode. And you're a big part of that. So thanks, man. You take care. Bye-bye.